So I don't know if you remember, I was talking about how Ferraris can sometimes just take forever to get things done. I ran into the same thing with the hubs on this car. These are the front hubs of the 330 that I'm restoring. So the way these things are retained are with these locking rings on the back. They hold all the bearing assemblies, and they load from the back. So they if you look down in there, there's a bearing, and there's two roller bearings, or not roller bearings, but ball bearing with races that drop in from the back side, and they don't necessarily have tension against them because it's not a roller bearing, it's a ball bearing setup, but they're captured and retained onto the stub axle with these retaining rings. There's a couple issues. One is that it takes a special tool to do it. I've looked and tried to find the right tool to do this, and it's one of these things where I don't know if it exists, or if it's a, because a pin wrench won't reach in there, because if you look at the way it's recessed on this lip, it won't reach. It looks like this one had been pounded on before by someone else. Maybe one of the bearings on these cars may have been replaced many years ago, and someone did the usual thing, which is just take a punch and drove it in until they backed it out. But I was trying my best not to do that. So what I wanted to do was try to get this out the right way, which is to make, to use the tool. But the problem is I don't have the tool. So the next choice is to make a tool. So I had a piece of steel laying around the shop, and I machined it so that it would fit inside the collar. So what you do is, if you imagine that this thing is in place, this drops right in, and then this goes in and lines up with the pins, and then you are able to turn this out. Two tricks, or two little things. One is that these hubs are handed. So in other words, one is clockwise and one is counterclockwise. So you have to be very careful. Very hard to see whether or not this backs out left-handed. Like for instance, this one turned out the normal way, counterclockwise to get it out. This one was clockwise to get it out. So possibly one of the reasons why this was so pounded up is whoever worked on it before didn't realize it was, pounding in one direction, couldn't get to move, and finally tried it the other way. What I ended up doing was, after I turned this thing, I welded a nut onto the back of this thing. I was trying to think, there's a zillion ways to do this, but what I decided to do was weld a nut in here and use this 19 millimeter nut to put on my impact gun and impact it out. So that one came out. Now, the problem with it is that these two lock together. So once I made this collar, it wouldn't go down to the second one because of the threads. So now what I have to do is I have to turn this down a little bit further so it'll go further. I think that if I put these pins back in, I don't know if there's enough strength. I mean, I can try it, but I don't know if there's enough strength, because if you look at how long this pin is extended, I'm afraid it's just going to bend. I think the support on the back of this tool is what keeps the thing from bending, and I've already bent them. I mean, I snapped off this one on the last one, so a couple of these got snapped off. So I think I'm not going to take a chance. I mean, I guess I could try these two and just push 4 of them in. I've got enough length on these pins that I can always chop them off and try again. I might just try that as opposed to turning this down. I might give it a shot. So let's see what happens. But this is all part of the trial and error, trying to make tools and make things work so I can get this thing apart so I can rebuild it. Well, that didn't take long to figure out that that wasn't going to work. One shot with the impact gun, bent those pins. So now I'm going to cut them out and start all over, and I'm going to have to machine this down to get past the first line of threads, because it's just, there's no way, I can't get it far enough. It's too far of a reach for those pins to have enough torque against it. So keep working on this thing. Okay, so I machined this to fit further down past the threads, but that wasn't until I first got the 2 collars out on each of these, So the first one came out and didn't have to clear the thread. So I got those removed, and then I machined my tool down another step, so that way it would fit past the threads on the lower one. And then hopefully I'm going to put the other pins in and impact them out. Let's hope it comes out. Alright, I got my pins installed. I've broken a bunch of them, so I have one last one. This one's the long one. I'm not cutting it down because as it gets bent, I want to make sure that I have enough there to do another one. So if it shears off at the bottom, I still have some. Hammer these in to make sure they're in. I'm going to put them in the vise and see if the impact gun will pull them out. Well, I had success. Pulled both retaining rings out with the impact gun. As I'm looking at the pieces, it looks like one of the hubs definitely, because the one that's at the bottom that was hidden by the top one is also chewed up. So that means someone had pounded away at this one and must not have had a tool to take it off and was able to get it off. But then this one looks pretty clean. I mean, no real marks or anything like that. But yeah, had to make the tool, had to modify it. Now I have a tool to do this. It did take a lot of force because one of the pins sheared off as I took the impact gun on it. So the nice thing about it is the way I've made this is that I can replace these pins as they break. And you can see how this one's a little bent just from the impact. I don't know if it'll work still. I mean, it should work fine tightening in this thing when I have to put it back together. But if it has to put a lot of torque, I don't know if this, with the impact gun, I don't think it's going to hurt as much to be slightly open to this. Because look, if you take this out, the top one, because I've had to take the material off for the one past the threads, it doesn't fit the top one anymore. Now I've jammed it, but like I said, it's like I'll have to see whether or not these pins line up, even though they're the collar doesn't support it. It might, but you know, when I have to take the next one. But who knows when the next time I'll use this tool to take it off. Putting it back on, I think with these pins it'll be fine, but when they're really stuck like what they were on this one, we'll have to see. But could be years the next time I use this tool again. But let me know in the comments if you had a better idea, if you know of a tool that would have done this. But I don't think there is, and that's why you end up making your own tools. Took the hub and cleaned everything off. Got all the old grease out, cleaned everything, pressed out the old bearings, and started to clean and get ready for reassembly. So I started to put this bearing back in. That's the first one that has to go in, the small one. So this one was ready to pop in, ready to drop down into the hole and press in. Then it would go in with the spacer, and then it would go in with this little C-clip. Then I noticed something. Went to go put the big bearing in, and it's the wrong size. It doesn't go in. There's two bearings inside, and this is the last one that's supposed to be as big as this. Went and got the other one, the old one, and checked it, and sure enough, this one goes in and the other one does not. So now, as you can see, it's really wanting to go in there. And you look, slightly too big. It turns out that for this car, or Series 2 330s, they changed the bearing size. These hubs are not exactly the same. So I had to order, because this one has a seal as well. So what I found out was that this is the smaller hub, 330s and 250s. But then by the Series 2 cars, they changed to the larger bearing, and it's a different bearing. So now I gotta wait for the bearing to come in and the seal to continue putting this together. So 2 steps forward, 1 step back, as always. So now we just wait for the next, wait for the right parts to arrive. Thanks for watching.